Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 7th of August. So, walking around downtown Moscow, happened to be here for a meeting, decided to record. So many things are still happening. We had Woodcock and Vladimir Vladimirovich meeting yesterday. Apparently went well. So now, going to be a Trump and Putin meeting, apparently. When? Sometime, possibly next week, which is really actually pretty fast for such a presidential level meeting, all things considered, when you consider the fact that these aren't European vassals meeting with Trump, but this is going to be something on a much more serious nature. So that's going to be interesting. So they got 1 week, maybe even less, to organize all of this, which is really unprecedented, because normally these types of things, especially in a for Trump security team anyways, a country that they consider hostile to them, normally this is something that you'd send advanced teams and primary teams to try to organize months in advance. But here we go in possibly a week. Now, what are they going to be discussing? I have no idea, because the Russian position hasn't changed. Apparently Trump was clueless, because he was asked, on how Ukraine recruits its men, well, its meat, about the press gangs, kidnappings, and even murders for people that resist a little too much, that happen on a daily basis all over Ukraine. Apparently Trump didn't know anything about this, which really raises up the question of the competency of the people around him, and whether or not he is lying or telling the truth, because the videos are all over the place. I mean, you can't go more than a day or two without seeing a video somewhere, even if you're not looking for it. So you get, like I said, it's very hard to believe, extremely hard to believe that Trump didn't know about this, or nobody advised him about this. There's a lot of crowds out and about. We're actually pretty close to the Kremlin. Sorry, I had to get by a little. A lot of these cafes are playing music, so no need YouTube banging me for background music. So yes, so we have that. I'm out. I go to the front lines often enough. We're going sometime, I guess, in August, toward the end of August, and definitely going in September again. I won't say where, particularly, until after the fact. Security is security. And I speak to various officers and enlisted guys that are fighting. And I can tell you this, the biggest fear in the Russian soldier's heart is some kind of deal. Some kind of deal that doesn't lead to victory. Because unlike what the West likes to portray, that the Russian fighting spirit is broken and Russian soldiers just want to go home and they're shooting their officers, which are not. The truth of the matter, is morale is always high in the army that's advancing. Morale is always low in the army that's retreating. The Russian army is advancing. It's not the easiest advance, but it is advancing. It's an advance that keeps getting increasing in speed and up tempo. There's a lot of construction around this area, even though there's lots of tourism. There's a lot of these older Tsarist buildings that are being renovated or slightly redesigned, where they keep the facade of the building and internally they change everything up or rebuild from scratch. Let's get by from this and I'll start recording again. So where were we? Yeah, the biggest fear is that the government's going to make some kind of deal that doesn't lead to victory, a total victory, as promised. And total victory in this case means the destruction of the Zelensky government, denazification, demilitarization. So the military is all for victory. Victory, even if it takes a year, 2 years longer. The military is ready to fight, the soldiers are ready to fight, and they want to fight, and they are fighting. So what the U.S. Can pretend that Russia's on its last legs or the economy's collapsing or what have you, it's all lies. It's flat out, it's all just lies. It's psyops. It's not psyops so much for the Russian people because the Russian people obviously see the truth of it. It's psyops for the Western tax serfs. Just keep giving money, just keep giving money. It's a little more money, just another month, another 2 months, another half year, another year. Sooner or later, just keep giving money. Don't worry that your life quality of life is collapsing. Don't worry that you can't afford your heating. Don't worry that you have to decide whether you want to heat your house or switch on electricity or feed your family. Just keep giving money. Ultimate victory. That's all that matters. That's the West's message to its serfs. And the question is, the people that are now serfs are becoming serfs. Do you really want to be that? Is that what you signed up for? I doubt it. Most people didn't. But that's something that really need to consider. I am on Red Square. That's the History Museum behind me. And that's the GUM behind me. The GUM, by the way, was I think the first building in the world with a fully glass roof. Steel glass roof. It's really beautiful inside. There's like 2 rows of, so it's like 3 rows of 3 stories and 3 rows of stores and these bridges in between and a steel glass roof above. Lots of tourists from all over the world and all over Russia. So anyways, so there's that. Then we go on to India. Yeah, this is a fun one. You know, if you want to, the Indians have been doing their damnedest to be, quote, neutral. In this case, to sit on the fence. We're part of BRICS, but we really still like to get our kiss up a bit to the West and have the West kiss our asses a bit because, this is neutrality. Well, now they're being forced that old American doctrine, you're either with us or you're against us. So there's no room for neutrality. And what has Trump told the Indians? If you don't do as we say, anyways, you know what? Hell with you guys. We're gonna feed the Pakistanis, which is what you want to set the Indians off. Oh, that's the biggest red button they've got. America is going to invest in Pakistan, which America, by the way, arms also. Not only China arms Pakistan, but America has traditionally armed Pakistan. And the Indians are very, very aware of that. And they never forget that. You don't need to think they forget. You don't need to think that just because they're not part of the West, they have no pride, they have no honor, and they have no dignity. Because that's how the West approaches any nation that isn't part of the West. Even though the West itself pretty much has no pride, has no dignity, and definitely has no honor. But so they approach the Indians in this manner, treating them like, basically like the meat that they want them to be. Trump slapped 25% tariffs on them because the Indians would not buy American produce. American produce he has to sell somewhere because the Chinese have stopped buying that. That's soybean, that's pork, that's beef, and so on. The beef, by the way, first and foremost now to China, comes from Australia. Well, I'm sure the Australians will have it coming their way soon enough, since the Americans really realize that, Australia, they're our little strumpet. Time to smack them upside the head and get them in line. And Australia will get in line because that's Australia. You say what you want, but it is what it is. But the other large amounts of beef are coming in from Brazil. And then there's the pork, soybeans, they're coming from Russia, and some more from Brazil. So basically, we got China covered. That's right. So what does Trump do? That the agrarian sector in the U.S., the small farms, family farms, they're the ones who voted for him. And they should have remembered the first term when he got the first pissing match with the Chinese, and the Chinese stopped buying American food products. Now, they came back to that after they negotiated with Trump. But this time, everything's a hell of a lot worse. And the relationship was a hell of a lot worse. because at that point the relationship was only deteriorating for about 2 years, starkly fast deterioration, less than that even. But since then, since Biden continued the same policies, and Trump has doubled down on them hard, it's now gone on for what, 6 years? 7 years, I'm counting? Things have gotten much worse and chillier. So the Chinese aren't going to be pushed around, and they've already made their cuts. And the Chinese have those rare earth magnets. It's not rare earths, just the rare earth minerals are everywhere. They're not that rare. In fact, America has quite a bit of those in the tailings, amongst other things, in the tailings from the coal mines. There's lots of that there. Problem is processing them. It's dirty and it's expensive, and you have to invest in it. And the Chinese have invested in it, and the Americans haven't. So you can have all the raw material you want. What do you do with it? Well, not much. You can look at it. Look at the shiny flecks in the soil, in the ore, the trace ore. Or you can process it. But to process it, you need to have the facilities. And like I said, the U.S. doesn't, nor is it investing in those much, and it doesn't have the capacity. So what do? And that's what you do. You buy from China. And China's face said, well, dual-use goods. Well, we don't think so. So even now, Trump is playing around with it, jumping here and there, but there's not much he can do. But the Indians seem to be, and even with the Brazilians, by the way, like I said earlier, if you look at the exception list, most everything Brazil makes is accepted, is on the exception list. So it's still, it's more formal tariffs than any real tariffs. Now, India, on the other hand, India has come out as the whipping boy for Trump. Because, India doesn't have that much business dealings with America. Not really. And India already said, to hell with the F-35, we'll buy the Russian Su-57. Plus, we get the manufacturer here, so we get tech transfer as part of the deal, which is always part of the deal. They also invested in development of the Su-57. So that's a much better deal for the Indians. And now that Trump's pushed the ultimate button, we're gonna invest in Pakistan. Oh, geez, man. That's one of those mines you step on, and now what the hell do? Your foot's on the landmine. If you pull it off, it blows. You stay on it, well, sooner or later it'll still probably blow underneath you. So, yeah, Trump let his mouth run away again, and things have turned out badly again. But hey, thank you very much. We'll run with that. So that's where we're at right now. Next week's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting when this meeting takes place, which is the paranoia of all Europeans, other than Orban and Rizzo, all those EU globalist Atlantists. This is their big paranoia. Trump and Putin are going to be in the same room together without any of them there. And what's interesting is I've been told by certain people that are very in the know that at least in the first administration of Trump, Putin and Trump had a best friend relationship, and that nobody can actually explain. They're like close relatives. Instead of just two presidents or even two people, two men who just know each other. They're like close relatives. So yeah, maybe not brothers, but first cousins, second cousins. And that's that. I think the Europeans know that. And that's just a great big paranoia for them. What the hell do we do now? None of our people are going to be in the room. What do we do? Additionally, for what I've been told, by very competent sources, Ursula Vanderline has requested from Trump asylum for her and her husband, her family. Because as we know, there are charges that are pending against her for mass corruption. And they earned well over $1 billion on those anti-COVID vaccines that have killed I don't know how many people. So she's they didn't go through a tendering process. She just signed the contracts, and they got on going with that. So she made a lot of money off of that, using her position. So apparently there's still a rising tide against her, and she wants out. At least when it gets critical mass, she wants out. She wants a place that she can't be extradited, and she's going to get to enjoy the spoils. And in return, she sat obediently by Trump, nodded her head, and signed up for everything, including the $750 billion in energy over 3 years. That's $250 billion each year, which is interesting because I think Americans can't afford that. I'll explain why. The U.S. last year hit a new record on export of energy goods, and it hit $80 billion. So it would have to grow it 3 times to just cover what Trump got the Europeans to promise to buy. We're not even covering what the South Koreans and the Japanese promised to buy. It's a hell of a lot more than that. The U.S. physically can't export all that. It would have to strip its own markets and watch the people will groan in pain and horror as their bills skyrocket so that they can feed energy to EU that doesn't particularly like them. That's one. And two, while we're at it, there's no transport available. That's right, boys and girls. There's no transport available. 3 years ago, when all this was really starting up, it was estimated there was about 160 in total, globally, about 160 LNG transports. Now, a few more have been built. True enough. But just to feed Europe, they would require over 360 transports, another 200. And if you could get every single other transport globally to work for you, to constantly go back and forth and feed the EU demand for natural gas. And that's just the EU demand for natural gas. That's absolutely not counting anybody else in the world. So obviously there's no physical ability to do this. And if you count that there's coal involved and oil, it's still 80 billion was all U.S. energy, that the U.S. energy products that the U.S. exported last year. 80 billion. That wasn't just gas. So no, U.S. physically can't do it, and it would have to strip its own internal markets. And again, yeah, that's going to leave a lot of happy voters when they realize that. Plus, there's this little problem of U.S. oil and gas companies are not nationalized. Since they're not nationalized, they sell to whomever they want. And there's been more than one occasion where halfway to Europe, they turn around, they go to Asia, right through the Panama Canal and bye-bye to Europe, because the Asians are paying a whole lot more. They will turn around midpoint and go somewhere else if there's a big enough difference in the market. So even if you promise to support the EU, you really can't. And that's, by the way, where India steps in. Because to, quote, leave the Russian market without collapsing the EU, the offer was that the Indians would resell the oil and oil products from Russia to the EU so the EU wouldn't collapse. So having fulfilled their part of this bargain, the Indians are now being condemned for it by the same Americans that suggested true. That was Biden 1, and now this is Biden 2 suggesting it. So yeah, that leaves less than a pleasant taste in their mouths. And they're not going to forget that either, anytime soon. And they are very sensitive to hypocrisy in the West towards them, as has been voiced by the Indian Minister of Foreign Affairs. Cannot remember his name right now. Interesting fellow, by the way, if you never listen to what he says. You need to. Where he quickly points out to all these Europeans and the Americans, hey, you're still buying Russian goods. In fact, the U.S. is still buying uranium, processed uranium, because Russia holds 70% of the world processing capability in uranium for its or its nuclear electrical plants. And the U.S. is still buying fertilizer. Otherwise, your hamburger is going to be a hell of a lot more expensive if it isn't for Russian fertilizer, because your yields will go down real quick. And you're already paying a hell of a lot more because of Russian fertilizer, thanks to the U.S. government and Brussels. The cost of Russian fertilizer, and Russia's the biggest producer, by far the biggest producer of fertilizer, chemical fertilizers in the world. The cost of your fertilizers have gone up threefold, sometimes fourfold. They get used a lot less, and the products that they fertilize get more expensive. The input costs go up rapidly. So there you go. You're already paying more. Is it worth it? Yeah, you be the judge. It's your pocket in the end of the day. So yes, there's that. So, okay. Well, have a good day. God bless. And we will talk later. There's always going to be something to mention, to talk about. By the way, this is part of the old walls of Moscow. So you got the Kremlin, which is the original walled city. That's what Kremlin means, just like Acropolis just means old, as the internal walled city. And this is the next wall that was built up. This is a portion of that wall. This is one of the towers. So imagine having to charge that and try to get across that. Yeah, not a fun day. And there's portions of the wall all over that got left over in different areas, or have houses built into them.